we have a very delightful and very enlightening speech ahead of us. I would like to welcome to the podium Mr. Mateen Mohammed.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, I would like to begin by telling you all a story that takes place in the Arabian Peninsula in the 9th century of the Common Era. The Imam of the time was Imam Rida alayhi salam. And like many of his predecessors, the Imam faced an intense amount of persecution from the ruling powers of his time. The particular ruling powers were that of the Abbasid Empire, an empire that was vast in terms of size and scope, whose borders stretched from the shores of modern-day Egypt to the borders of modern-day India. This empire, what it boasted in terms of size and strength, it lacked in terms of leadership, and leaders with a proper sense of integrity. This empire, after all, was responsible for the imprisonment and death of our 7th Imam, Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salam. After the death of our 7th Imam, the Emperor Ma'mun would go on to inflict a great amount of hardship upon the life of our 8th Imam, Imam Rida. And it was because Ma'mun feared Imam Rida. He feared the influence he could have because of his superior knowledge and his piety. Thus, he forced the Imam to travel from his home in Medina to the city of Tus in modern-day Iran, so Ma'mun could have a closer eye on the Imam. Yet even Ma'mun's greatest efforts to suppress and silence the Imam failed him, because as the Imam moved from Medina to Tus, he had to pass through the city of Nimeh Shabaan. And it was while going through the city that he had a most famous encounter with his people. As the Imam's caravan traveled through the city, a large crowd, numbering in thousands, gathered around the Imam. They wished to hear the Imam and see his face. And men, women, and children from every class and occupation gathered around the Imam. And it was during this occasion that one man from the crowd raised his voice and asked the Imam,
O most honorable dignitary and son of the Master Imams, by the rights of your purified forefathers and your glorious ancestors, could you please let us see your blessed face, and could you narrate for us hadith from your forefathers, quoting your grandfather Muhammad?
The Imam finally presents himself, and the people rejoice at the mere sight of the Imam. In order to fulfill the request of the individual, the Imam then begins reciting a hadith with a chain of narration that goes back to the Imams that preceded him until he arrives to the authority of the Prophet, who has narrated from the angel Jibreel, who has narrated from the Lord of the heavens himself. And he states to the people that
La ilaha illallah is my citadel. Whoever says it will enter my citadel, and whoever enters my citadel is safe from my retribution.
the Imam returns to his carriage behind the curtains. And the people once again rejoice at hearing the sound of the Imam. And yet the hadith is left incomplete. Just as the people think that the Imam has finished, he re-emerges one last time to tell the people that
all of this depends on some conditions, and I am considered to be one of those conditions.
Salawat ala Muhammad. The story of Imam Rida's famous trip to Nishabur is known as the story of the golden chain. And it reaffirms the authority of the Imams as well as our obligation to recognize them. This story is actually a catalog, it's part of a catalog of a hadith that continuously seek to enlighten the people about the benefits of knowing your Imam and recognizing him. Consider the fact that La ilaha illallah is one of the most basic acts that a Muslim can perform. And yet even this most basic ritual is made conditional. For the people of Imam Rida's time, for the people of Nishabur, the condition was to recognize Imam Rida. For all of us, it's to recognize Imam Mahdi as the Imam of our time. But when considering this fact, we have to ask ourselves, what makes Imamat so vital to our faith? What makes it so important that it is considered a necessity? And when considering this topic, we have to look at another hadith from the Prophet himself, when he states that one who dies without recognizing the Imam of his time dies the death of ignorance. The very last word from this hadith, ignorance, is an especially important one because of its dual meanings in the Arabic language. Ignorance is translated from the term jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah, first and foremost, can be translated to a state of ignorance, a state of not knowing something or not understanding something. But it can also be translated into referring to the time period before the advent of Islam, the pre-Islamic period of ignorance. This time period was known as a time where men would bury their daughters alive, where women were practically seen as commodities, and where polytheism ruled the land. So when analyzing this hadith, we have to consider the dual meanings of it, of the word jahiliyyah. And it makes the words of the Prophet even more powerful, in that living and dying without recognizing the Imam of our time it equates itself to living and dying during an incredibly wicked era of humankind. Brothers and sisters, this type of death is one that should strike fear in all of our hearts. Not only because of the implications it would have in the afterlife, in the wrath we would face in the afterlife, but also because of the tremendous void it would leave in our lives in this world. Think for a moment about the connection that each of you have with your Lord, and how it has been strengthened, with not only because of the Imam of our time, but because of every Imam preceding him. Think of the remorse that one feels when you read the Dua Command. Think of the tremendous amount of sorrow and grief that one feels when hearing the story of Imam Hussein. Think of the deep sensation of longing that overwhelms a human being who reads the Dua Nutbah and pleads with their Lord for the return of the Imam of their time. Then think for a moment that all of these sensations and the knowledge that comes from them is taken away from you. There is no Ghadir, there is no Karbala, there is no awaited Imam of our time. Think of this absence, and this absence, with this absence, can we fully understand the religion of the Prophet? Can we even fully understand the Prophet himself? Brothers and sisters, this absence, and us imagining it, this is the ignorance that the Prophet was referring to. And it is only when imagining this absence that one truly understands how important imamat is to our faith. All of us know and understand what is at stake, and how deeply it would affect our faith if we were to lose this form of knowledge. Understanding God in all His glory, mercy, and magnificence is an incredible challenge. But it is through the Prophet and the Imams who rightfully succeeded him that we are given guides to overcome this challenge. Thus, recognition of the Imam of our time is not something recommended nor advised, but an absolute necessity in our lives. All of you tonight, by merely attending this program, have loudly declared to your Imam that you care about the words of the Prophet. You care about the warning that the Prophet has given, and that you will do whatever it takes to avoid the death of Jahiliyyah that he has mentioned. Brothers and sisters, I applaud every one of you for taking the step into giving the Imam of our time the recognition that he rightfully deserves. Inshallah, may all of you be rewarded by taking this effort, and inshallah, we'll all be graced to be of some sort of service in your efforts. And thank you very much for your time, and loud salawat.